I want to cover the fact that they've managed in pretty much less than 3 days to effectively decapitate the entire leadership of the Iranian regime.
Iran hasn't been a normal country since 1979. It's been essentially a religious system that controls politics. That's the issue with that country.
They're celebrating and they're supporting these tyrants and these oppressive regimes, while the people who are actually living underneath these regimes are celebrating the liberation and the freedom of them.
Steve Dangle probably should not comment on politics.
Our universities actually covert indoctrination centers.
Answer, yes. The establishment attacks on Pierre Poilievre seem to have no end.
The United Kingdom is precipitating its own destruction. Welcome to the Radical Podcast, episode 110. How time flies by. My name is Dangel, and I'm joined today with our co-host,
Simmer Malhotra.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Ellie. How's your weekend?
Weekend's been busy. I've been plugged to a computer and my phone, just looking at everything that's happening. 2026 has been a year of action.
Yeah.
It's been a year where things have not stopped. It's freaking January, you have Venezuela. February, it starts with El Mencho and Mexico, and now we're Iran and the Middle East. And let's call it right now, March, Cuba. Cuba, it's March. Yeah?
Okay.
And then February, it'll be Canada. No, sorry, Greenland is April. April is Greenland. By May, Canada.
51st day.
I mean, again, the Monroe Doctrine dictates that the Western Hemisphere should be under the sphere of influence of the United States of America, right? That's what President Monroe had, and it's been the default, the de facto foreign policy or even domestic policy of the United States of America since those years. And now Trump kind of usurped it and calls it the Monroe Doctrine now. But yeah, we can't let, and I wouldn't be surprised because China is starting to become more influential in Canada, and the United States cannot allow such a thing to happen. It is unfathomable that China would become a dominant sphere of influence on Canada, which shares 5,500 kilometers of undefended border. We cannot allow that to happen. So who knows? Who knows? Might be 51st state, might just be something else that happens, but China cannot have a foothold here, and it already has started, which is scary to me. It's scary. I've said this before, I'll say this again, and this is something that has been brought forth by my good buddy Jason James. Shout out to you if you're watching this. And he's always said that there will always be a hegemon in the world. Hegemony is a real thing. There will always be a dominant power broker of the world. And right now, China and the United States are vying for that power. And he says, and so do I concur fully, I much rather be under the sphere of influence of America. It's not to say we're not sovereign. It's not to say Canada doesn't make its own policies, but ultimately it's always going to be in line with what the United States wants and the United States gets, and not what China wants and what China gets. So, I
agree.
Yes, good. On today's episode, we're going to definitely be covering Iran because it's dynamic, it's kinetic, things are moving fast. We won't do a deep dive because there's just too much. It'll just be summary, broad level stuff. If you want to see a little bit more of a deeper dive, released yesterday or 2 days ago, the first Right Call report. It's a little bit of a different format, solo, but it's more deep dive into certain things. Let us know in the comment, by the way, if you enjoy it. And most importantly for this episode, comment what you think is happening in Iran. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you support it? Do you not support it? We read every single comment, and it's always a pleasure to get feedback from you guys. While we're at it at the same time, Patreon. Thank you so much for our Patreon. You guys are the bread and butter of this channel. We do this for you. And if you're not a Patreon yet, subscribe $8 unless you're Mossad. Then it's 10 grand a month for you, Mossad. But who knows? With what's happening, maybe they'll be paying that. So today, covering a little bit of Iran. Our prime minister is fresh off of an India trip, and it sounds good at face value, but it might not quite be. I did a little bit of digging, and there's just one very concerning thing, as usual, that I want to raise to the attention of people. We're going to look into the radicalization of faculty or university faculty. We wonder why the world is turning the way it is. Well, as Bezmenov, former Soviet KGB agent, said, once you start controlling the learning institutions, you control the future of a nation. And this might be a reason why. I don't know if it's by design. I don't know if it's just we've been laxed and allowed it to happen. But regardless, the data coming out of it, scary. And on my end, I'm going to end a little bit with the United Kingdom. I like to speak about Sweden. We've spoken about Sweden many, many times, but the UK is not doing any better. and some crime statistics have came out for 2024, 2025, and I want to contrast that and, give our Brits brethren a little bit of a wake-up call. What about you, sir?
Well, that's a lot of stuff. Today, I do want to talk a little bit about Iran. I created segments about what I've learned that's going on in Iran. I'd love to share it with the viewers and listeners. Elliot, do you know Steve Dangle?
I don't.
Okay, I'm sure you've seen him. He's been a commentator on the Toronto Maple Leafs for over a decade. I remember him since I'm a teenager. He's been doing this thing on YouTube for a long, long time. He's a very popular Canadian in general. And he had a bit of a breakdown, a meltdown on his show. And I would love to talk about that. It's very funny. We'll get into it later. But also, my third segment will be the establishment media's anti-Poilievre campaign continues.
Yeah.
So this has been something we've noticed a lot since Carney got elected, this endless anti-Poilievre rhetoric. Where it comes from, obviously it's the liberal establishment, in my opinion. But I want to dismantle this endless attack on him because I don't think it's warranted, and I think it's going to make them look bad in the long run. But that's what I got today.
Awesome. Well, and this is one thing, and we've raised the alarm with this before, but why aren't the conservatives being attacked left and right all the time from the mainstream media? They're not in power. They're not the ones running the country. Media should be holding our elected officials accountable. Now, I get it. $1.4 billion of subsidy every year. You're probably not going to bite the hand that feeds you. But honestly, and I'll talk more about that when we get into your segment. But right now, let's go into the world's happening. The Middle East is back to war once again. Israel and the United States have launched a preemptive strike on Iran, which is now a full-scale war at this point. Without getting too much into the details, I want to cover the fact that they've managed in pretty much less than 3 days to effectively decapitate the entire leadership of the Iranian regime. First and foremost, the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, was taken out. This is huge. I mean, woo!
It's the head of the snake.
It's definitely the head of the snake, but it's not the only person that was taken out. So, I mean, I got a little list here. Let's zoom in because there's so many people. So, we got the Iranian chief of staff. And I'm not going to name their name because I will butcher every single one of their names. I do not speak Farsi or Persian. There's also the past Iranian chief of staff. So even if you are not in the administration anymore, if you've committed crimes that the U.S. or Israel judges to be unsalvageable, you're kaput now. The commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps taken out as well. Commander of the Central Headquarters, the Emergency Command, out. Commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Air Corps, out. Commander of the Syria-Lebanon Corps, out. Commander of Hamas Military Wing, out. Leader of the Hamas terrorist organization, out. Commander of the Southern Front for Hezbollah, out. Head of Hezbollah's operation, out. I mean, there's so many more. Everyone is dropping like flies out there, to the point where after Supreme Leader Khamenei was taken out, obviously right after another Supreme Leader, or call it temporary Supreme Leader, took over his position. That job for him lasted a whopping like 12 hours because he was taken out right after as well. So yeah, it's the survival rate of that job does not look or bode very well right now. Yeah. Now, what has Iran done in exchange? Because they have not sat there idle. They've unleashed barrage after barrage after barrage of ballistic missiles, of suicide drones, of various weaponry. But the thing is this, you'd expect them to only strike the U.S. and Israel. No.
I have a list of all the countries they hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a little... I don't have the entire list, so you'll have to dive into all the list.
Yeah.
But I just want to highlight that they've started attacking foreign Arab Muslim states.
Yeah.
Right? So I got here that they've hit Iraq, they've hit Jordan, they've hit Kuwait, they've hit Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, so Abu Dhabi and Dubai, Saudi Arabia as well. Did I say Oman? Oman. Who else?
What I got is Israel, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan.
And I mean, they've also hit on Cyprus, a UK base, because there's a UK base in Cyprus. They've hit a French base as well.
Yeah.
They are hitting left and right, up and down. Everyone's eating a missile in their face.
Yeah.
And before you say it's only military targets they're attacking, no, they're attacking civilian targets. They've hit airports, civilian airports. They've hit hotels. They've hit civilian like condo buildings. It's indiscriminate. It's whatever can be hit is being hit.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to look into why they're doing this, because to me, it made no sense. Why are you just attacking left and right, up and... Because the US and Israel are not attacking right now civilian targets. If there are civilian casualties, it is sadly collateral damage. War is messy, and I'm not condoning attack or the death of civilians, but it is not the primary target. But there's a reason for that. I dove a little bit. I dived a little bit into it, and it's due to the Iranian mosaic. It's a mosaic, right? Mosaic command doctrine. So they were ready for this. They understood that the head of the snake, like you said so well, could be taken out. So as such, they've created an array and they've empowered regional commanders. So that's much lower in the chain of command to have full, complete autonomy to authorize actions against any target they want. And that's why it seems like there's a lack of congruency as to the response. It's because you have a bunch of regional commanders that are doing whatever they want. It's in order to perpetuate the fighting back, because obviously if you keep waiting for your orders to come from centralized command, and centralized command gets, bombed every hour or so, and there's a new person in post, you're not really going to do much. So this might explain, for example, why Oman was hit. Oman is a neutral country. They don't host any military bases, but Oman did host or mediate peace talks between the two. And perhaps some regional commanders saw them as traitor for not actually just siding with Iran outright. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm speculating, right? But again, it made no sense. Oman out of all places. So now, how are Iranians taking this? I've spoken to several Iranians. I know plenty of Persians, and some that were born here, some that were born in Iran and immigrated to Canada later on. And to be honest, the average sentiment here, and this is not, I'm not speaking for all of them, but this is the average sentiment I've been getting, is that they want the Shah back. They want the royalty to be put back into place. And right now, the crown prince, so the heir apparent, who has been living in the US pretty much all of his life since the revolution, the Islamic Revolution, seems to be coordinating things with various regional powers. He's really good friends with the Trump admin. He's good friends with Bibi Netanyahu as well. So maybe he's going to make a run for it, take over the country once it's safe to do so. Who knows? My warning here, my worry is that I don't want this to turn into another Syria or another Libya. I don't want this to be a long, protracted, never-ending, Bush-Cheney, forever war in the Middle East. Now, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Trump came out and said, this operation we know might take 4 weeks, it might take less, but we're not turning this into another Iraq. And for that, so far, tentatively, I'm content with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, the thing about Iran, Elliot, is Iran hasn't been a normal country since 1979. It's been essentially a religious system that controls politics. That's the issue with that country. Ruhollah Khomeini, the founder of this political movement in 1979, didn't build a democracy with Islamic values layered on top. It's not like Canada or the United States, where it's a Christian country with it's a democracy with Christian values. Mm-hmm. They built a system where sovereignty belongs to God, not the people, and where a senior cleric has final authority over everybody else. Mm-hmm. So they do have presidents, they exist, they have elections, they have a parliament, but they don't have ultimate power. Mm-hmm. A cleric does. And in Islamic government, Khomeini argued that a qualified jurist has governing authority comparable in the administration, the same authority as their prophet, mm-hmm. which is a very big statement to make, especially when it comes to ruling a country. So from the beginning, the system was designed to subordinate voters into religious authority. I don't know if you ever had any Persian friends growing up.
Oh, plenty.
And I grew up in Montreal. I had plenty of Persian friends, and a lot of them would say the same thing. We don't follow our religion. We actually hate it mm-hmm. because of where they came from, how oppressive it is. And so this system has existed for, decades upon decades. So classic Sharia punishments like amputation and stoning weren't rejected, they were treated as legitimate law. Here's a horrifying example. Pre-puberty marriage contracts were discussed within formal legal structure, which is insane. Child marriage is legal. After 1979, those doctrines and ideas shaped the entire country of Iran in the form of mandatory hijab, Islamic vetting of laws, revolutionary courts, crushing dissenting voices. And externally, the regime, the Iranian regime, has projected power through proxies. So the U.S. has designated Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism for decades. So $700 million per year to Hezbollah. Okay, $100 million historically to Palestinian militant groups. Billions spent backing Assad in Syria. You were talking about Syria. And that man was a tyrant. So now fast forward to what just happened. Trump did order the strike that killed their supreme leader. But that doesn't mean that the regime will just collapse tomorrow. When your entire political architecture revolves around a single supreme religious authority, removing that person does matter. It's important to get that person out of the way. And like you said, the regime's response was just to launch attacks to neighboring countries: Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan. And that is currently what's going on right now. And so what I've noticed in the media and what people are commenting on this topic, I saw Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, miss some serious facts around this issue. Specifically, roughly 80% of Iranians reject the Islamic Republic as a governing model. And if that number is even slightly right, the regime does not sit on a foundation of broad consent. So when you zoom out, it's not complicated. The system was built to place religious authority above individual liberty. It sponsors proxy wars and terrorism abroad, and it suppresses dissent at home. And now its top authority has been eliminated. So in my opinion, that's a good thing for the free world, and Iranians are celebrating and praising Donald Trump's decisive action. I saw so many clips of mass hordes of Iranians celebrating, similarly to when Venezuelans were celebrating the removal of Maduro. Another thing that liberals criticized heavily was a narco-terrorist being removed from his country, an authoritarian, and now they're doing the same thing.
Well, isn't that fucking interesting, to be quite honest with you, that it's always liberals, and it tends to be a faction of them, by the way. They're celebrating and they're supporting these tyrants and these oppressive regimes, while the people who are actually living underneath these regimes are celebrating the liberation and the freedom of them. It's almost as if, it's easy to be a quarterback, an armchair quarterback, and support people when you don't have to actually suffer underneath their oppression, right?
Well, they criticize the president for personal and partisan gain. That's my opinion. I think people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, they're just doing it for political gain to rally their base, and their base is very simple. It's not Trump. That's the simplicity of that political movement. That it's just whatever Trump does, it's wrong.
Yeah, but that's this is why I want to I miss politics from the 80s, even in the 90s, where sure, you could disagree with certain things, but for the most part, I think both sides still wanted the best for the country, and you could actually praise and rally and get behind an opposing party if they made a good move. But now it's been so fragmented that it has to be opposed. No matter what, it has to be opposed. And it's just a bad look. It's like during the State of the Union address when you had Chief Warrant Officer 5, who was he received a Medal of Honor. He was one of the helicopter pilots that flew Delta Team into Venezuela. He took 4 bullets to the legs. That guy is a hero. He barely managed to stand up to receive the Medal of Honor. And he's there and he's receiving praise from everyone except the Democrats who stayed seated, which is, that is the biggest insult there is. Think about this warrior, wounded, has a hard time even standing up, but does so because he honors the moment, and you can't even get up on your own 2 legs. Fuck that.
It's partisanship.
It is absolutely.
In the situation of Iran, I actually have a letter of someone who wrote. This is something they posted online. I saw this post. My parents are crying with joy. I don't have enough words to describe what this moment means for my family and for the millions of Iranian refugees who sacrificed everything to flee the Islamic regime. The Ayatollah's reign of evil is coming to an end. God bless the USA. That's what Iranians are saying. And I actually gathered a bunch of clips. I don't know if you want to actually play them on the show, but I have just groups and groups of Iranians celebrating in different places.
Well, I mean, we'll just say this. You just go on X, go on YouTube, go anywhere, and people will see celebrations left and right. There were some in Montreal. There's some in every major city. People are legitimately chanting and having a blast with this. They're hopeful. Yeah. Notable, by the way, Israel used for the first time ever, at least publicly, a direct energy weapon called the Iron Laser to shoot down some rockets. It's kind of wild. It's legitimately like that lowers the cost of interception considerably, because right now Iranian rockets or ballistic missiles are maybe like a couple $1 million a pop. Meanwhile, you got these like 20, 30, $40 million interceptor being shot like dozens at a time. So this is interesting. Again, like there's some technology in the world that we don't even know about. Convinced of that. One thing also that's interesting is that a lot of liberals and people that are against this are saying, this is not our war. This is not our war. Let's stay out of it. And you know what? To an extent, I agree with you. I really do, because I don't believe that, Canada, for example, should get involved. But then I can't help myself but ask, why don't we apply the exact same freaking reasoning to Ukraine? It's not our war. It's not any more of our war, and it's cost us so far more than $20 billion.
And Carney recently added another
$2 billion. Yeah. Why not? So to close off a little bit on Iran and move on, because we're not going to just talk about Iran today, but I want to quote Secretary of War Hexeth, who said this, and this is great. He said that for decades, the Iranian regime said death to America and death to Israel. Well, America brought death, Israel brought death, and the Iranian regime is no more. So it's kind of poetic justice in a way, isn't it?
Savage.
It's savage. I mean, that's one thing, dude. And the memes that have been coming out, and the Department of Defense, what they've been releasing. I mean, whoever manages the social media of the White House and the various governments of the U.S. or departments of the U.S., kudos, you guys are like impeccable. It's hilarious, the stuff that are coming out of there. Now, another thing that's kind of hilarious that came out not of Iran or the Middle East, but rather Southeast Asia, is our Prime Minister coming back from India. So again, I'm not going to dive too much. There's a lot of things that happened. But first of all, it cost us a tremendous amount of money to send him there, because obviously security is heightened right now for very obvious reason. But the big announcement is that Canada signed a deal with India for multi-billion dollars. Okay, that sounds good at face value, and I'm actually kind of glad. Although they're all MOUs so far. They're just MOUs, which it's.
How's that MOU with Danielle Smith going?
There you go. It's not even worth the paper it's written on, because an MOU is non-binding. It's just saying this is what we want to do. It's like a draft. It's a template. It's a summary of what they might try to negotiate later on. Yeah. But it's a good first step. Whatever. But when you dig a little bit deeper, the big deal in this MOU is actually a private company in Saskatoon called Cameco, which is slated to sell for $2.6 billion worth of uranium. That's 22 million pounds of uranium to India. So, okay. Could that be good? Well, I got to ask the question. What do Canadians get from this private corporation receiving the biggest shill of the world from our prime minister? Because effectively that's what's happening. Our prime minister is over there shilling for this private company to make a deal. Now, okay, is it going to increase the numbers of jobs? Well, Cameco employs 2,600 people in Saskatoon. It's a good amount, but it's not by any stretch of the imagination a huge amount of people being hired. This is slated to increase a few percentage points their staff. Okay, so it's not going to be jobs then. Then, I don't know, maybe tax revenue, right? Tax revenue. Well, Cameco is known to sue the CRA pretty much every single freaking tax year to lower its corporate tax burden. Sometimes to zero, sometimes even receiving money back from the CRA. Since 2003, and every single year since, up until 2017, which is the most recent litigation, they have sued the CRA. What they do is they obfuscate their income by passing it all through foreign entities and saying, well, it's foreign earned income. It is not or should not be taxed in Canada. So again, it's probably not going to be tax revenue. So then you're going to ask, okay, so why are we shilling so hard for Cameco? Well, as it would have it, it's Brookfield written all over it once again. Because
No
Brookfield, I kid you the fuck not,
As soon as you started talking about it, I'm like, Brookfield.
had to be Brookfield. So Cameco is actually best buddies with
course.
Brookfield, because Cameco and Brookfield together form a joint partnership in owning Westinghouse, which is a huge energy company. And Cameco owns, I think, 49% of it. Brookfield owns 51% of it. So Cameco now making this deal, I can guarantee you, and I cannot prove this, but I guarantee you they're going to start bringing everything through Westinghouse, or Westinghouse is going to get massive contracts for this deal. And then who's the ultimate beneficiary? Well, half of it is Brookfield.
Oh my God.
So then you got to ask once again, why isn't our media asking these questions? You're going to talk about how media keeps fucking harping on Poilievre, but this is their jobs. Why is a private citizen just doing this much due diligence? It did not take me a lot of time, just a tiny bit of due diligence to look into this and realize that once again, Brookfield is involved somewhere. Brookfield is always involved. And this, by the way, I challenge the viewers. Every single trip that Carney has taken for last year, there is always a press release 1 to 4 weeks later on from Brookfield saying that some executives or board members so happened to be in whatever country Carney was in a few weeks before, making deals. I kid you not, it is the biggest conflict of interest. And you're going to say, yeah, but he put his shares in a blind trust. Yeah, of course. He's totally forgotten that he owns Brookfield because it's in a blind trust. Like, guys, how foolish can you be?
Speaking of foolish, let's talk about Steve Dangle.
Yes.
Okay, because Steve Dangle is not paying attention to the kind of stuff you're talking about. You know what he's paying attention to?
What?
I actually want to play this clip. Let me just connect to the system.
What's up, everyone? Beautifully broken. What's up?
So check out this meltdown by Steve Dangle.
The Hughes brothers were taking shots at the Toronto media about how he's a great captain. I'm like, I don't think anyone in Toronto was criticizing that.
Yeah,
it was American media
all the Leafs fans during the Olympics talking about how Matthews is a bad captain for Team USA.
It was friggin' Joe Haggerty in Boston. Like, I don't know,
guys,
I don't know what we need to do here,
guys.
Anyway,
you know,
yeah.
Anyway, what people have a problem with, Trump, besides being directly responsible for the murder of American citizens through his ICE Gestapo, with the context of Canada, he threatened our sovereignty. He threatened, and those players taking pictures with Carolyn Levitt and shit. Don't think we haven't forgotten. With her smile on her face, that looked a little different at the time, but that smile on her face, hey, we look forward to the U.S. Beating our soon-to-be 51st state, Canada. You fucking asshole. We'll never be your 51st state. And that's got nothing to do with hockey. That's got everything to do with you motherfuckers showing up at our front door with guns and tanks and shit. Of course we're going to feel a certain type of way about that. And you're the captain of a Canadian NHL team, Austin, Brady, Connor Hellebuck might as well be.
Quinn until a couple.
Jesus Christ, man.
So I mean, this goes on and on, but he just had like a complete meltdown. And I blame, honestly, the liberal media establishment personally for peddling endless, like,
Propaganda.
aggressive propaganda that just radicalizes people because, you know, Steve Dangle has not done his homework, clearly.
Tanks. There's tanks at a border.
Like tanks and shit, man. Like they Maduro got like picked up out of like a chopper.
But there's tanks at a Canadian border.
Oh, there's tanks coming. Oh my God. You want to talk about tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists?
Jeez.
You know, Steve Dangle probably should not comment on politics. You know, it's one thing to be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and support a team that cannot get it together no matter how much money you throw at that dumpster fire, which reminds me a lot of the Liberal Party of Canada, by the way. It's another thing to go full unhinged tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist mode. No, Steve, the USA is not about to invade Canada with tanks and shit. it's really funny because the left always accuses the right of being tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, when a lot of those theories turned out to be a reality. But Steve Dangle exposed in real time how clueless the average voter is in this country. First thing, Team USA shaking the president's hand is not a travesty. They're not Canadian MPs, they're not diplomats, they're not on foreign affairs committees, they're American athletes. If the US team gets invited to meet the sitting US president after a major win and players shake his hand, that's a normal thing. Okay? It's been normal under Democrats and Republicans for decades.
Yeah.
So the question isn't, why did they shake hands? The real question is, why are clowns like Steve Dangle treating a routine photo op like a national security crisis? Because that's the trick liberal politicians play on Canadians. Take something ordinary, inflate it into a moral emergency, and then farm engagement off the public, off the panic as well. Now, let's talk about the 51st state stuff. People keep repeating it like it's a policy memo. Show me the legislation. Show me the plan. Show me the mobilization. There isn't one. What exists is rhetoric and trolling and a whole industry of commentators acting like it's doomsday.
Laura Babcock and Rachel Gilmore.
Let's talk about ICE raids and illegal immigration. Again, pick one standard. If you're going to talk about deportations like it's a unique Trump Gestapo, as he said, invention, then you need to be honest about the baseline. Obama deported millions across 2 terms. Clinton had reforms that drove large enforcement as well. So if you didn't treat those years like fascism, then don't pretend like the mere existence of normal enforcement under Trump is some unprecedented horror. And here's a message to the Canadian liberal commentators and people like Steve Dangle coming across so insecure. If Canada was thriving, this wouldn't even be a story. If the Canadian dollar was strong like it was, pushing above 90 cents US during most of the Harper era, if housing wasn't completely disconnected from reality, if debt and cost of living weren't crushing people, we wouldn't be sitting here watching Canadian commentators act like a handshake is treason. Strong countries don't spiral over stories like this. Economic weak countries like Canada currently do. So no, the real scandal isn't American athletes shaking hands with the president. The scandal is Canadian media personalities selling this idea that a normal ceremony is betrayal, that rhetoric is an invasion, and Canadian weakness is somehow the fault of American symbolism.
Yeah. See,
if your whole worldview collapses because Austin Matthews shook the president's hand, maybe you have some serious issues you need to address on your own.
Yeah, plenty of those. You know, not everything has to be political. These athletes are at the pinnacle of their fucking sport, of their discipline. They've just accomplished one of the greatest feats you could ever accomplish in sports, and let them just enjoy the moment. I'm sorry to say, dude, but like, I'm not a big fan of Carney. If Carney invites me to say Rideau Hall to award me the Order of Canada, I'm taking it. I'm not going to be like, I hate you, Carney. I'm not fucking going. Dude, I'll shake your hand. I'll say, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. If you're being recognized for your excellence, it is beyond political. Not everything is political. You mentioned something about conspiracy theory, by the way, and I like to repeat this all the time because it is so true. What's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth?
6 months?
6 months. 6 months. That's all it is. 6 months. So, yeah. What is not a... Was that the segment? Or?
I had one last thing to say about this. It's about masculinity, right? If men like Steve Dangle focused on the economy in Canada, focused on healthcare in Canada, focused on housing in Canada, learned about finance and economics, learned about tax policies and compounding taxes, and inflation crushing the average Canadian to the point of millions of Canadians lining up at food banks and over 70% of Canadians being $200 away from bankruptcy, maybe your political opinion would make more sense. Men like Steve Dangle need to wake up and take a look in the mirror on how their ignorance and incompetence has failed this country, and maybe they should start paying attention to the actual issues affecting this country. And that's all I have to say. You know, you could point your finger at Trump, but you're choking yourself with your other hand. So pay attention.
You're choking yourself with your other hand. I have like the wildest image in my head with that. Oh man! But you see, like, look, I'll push this further. Now everything has to be political. If he's a sports commentator, it's fine if he doesn't know politics. To be honest, I'm cool with that. I don't expect him to know what's going on. But at the same time, although I do believe, look, everyone can have their opinion, but I'll say this to viewers instead: take it with a grain of salt. If this guy doesn't really, he comments on sports and clearly is not well informed on what's going on, take it with a grain of salt.
I take it with a grain of salt.
Not you. I'm saying the viewers.
Oh,
I know
okay,
you
fair
do.
enough. Fair
I know
enough. Fair
you
enough.
do.
I see. Okay.
What's not to be taken so much with a grain of salt, though, is are our universities actually covert indoctrination centers?
Answer: yes.
Well, let's see. There's this research that was done on extremism amongst university faculty. It's divided within each department, and it looks into the political belief of those that we pay thousands, tens of thousands, heck, hundreds of thousands in the US to teach us. Amongst those beliefs are either radical, political activists, Marxists, socialists, or at least one of those. And we're going to look at how many of the faculty members actually espouse those beliefs. In the business department, and I'm only going to give you at least one, okay? So just at least one of them is radicalized. In the business department, 23.1% of faculty espouse at least one of those views. Which you think business, it should be lower than that. Nope. In the education department, it's 45.8%. That's huge. That's 1 out of 2. In the engineering department, it's 21.2. In humanities, the highest, of course, it's 54.1%. In life sciences, we're at 44.4%. Physical sciences, 38.7%. Social sciences, 44.7%. In total, overall, all faculties combined, 40.3% of teachers and faculty members espouse a radical ideology. There's a reason you can enter university as a totally normal, well-adjusted young individual, and you come out of there as a radicalized, progressive, social justice activist. Universities used to be about pursuit of truth, a place for open dialogue, exchange of ideas, and constant discovery. But now it's turned into a breeding ground for groupthink. 66% of university graduates now are women. Right? That should be celebrated. But the thing is, women consistently and considerably vote more to the left. Now you can start wondering why that is. Well, I believe that is a strong reason why, which again raises the question: are our universities actually covert indoctrination centers? And I mean, in your time at Concordia, is that something that you witnessed a little bit?
Honestly?
Because you were in economics, right?
Yes, I studied finance. I graduated. I majored in finance. And honestly, I've always been so business focused that I never really noticed it. I was never so political at the time. So I never really noticed the indoctrination. But going back to it with all the like the carbon credit stuff and all this kind
So
of...
they would talk about that.
They were slowly getting into talking about sustainability and all these things, but pushing it past like the pushing it as something more important than the actual knowledge you need in the finance degree. I noticed it a little bit, but I never noticed it to such an extent. But
when did you graduate?
I don't even remember. Oh my god!
So you went to university. I mean, you're how old are you?
8 years ago. 8 years ago, 2026,
Are you-
2018.
Are you younger or older than me?
I'm younger than you, probably.
Well, aren't we the same age?
No.
I'm 34. How old are you?
I'm 33.
You're 33. Okay.
Yes.
So then you were in university from say 2010, 2011 all the way till like 2014-ish.
Yeah.
2015.
much,
Yeah. Well, I think it's accelerated considerably since then, but it probably started around that time.
Okay.
And I mean, we've seen all the videos when people go on college campus, right? I mean, Charlie Kirk was the huge proponent of that. They go on campuses and you can see how radical the people that were there, to the point where, like, I mean, and it's violence radicalization too, right? These people, they don't want to have discourse, which to me is the biggest paradox. You're in a university, the entire purpose is to question things. Even if the thing is wrong, you question it, you debate it, you form the scientific method, hypotheses, you test the hypothesis, you come up with a conclusion, and if it's not the right, you try again until you get to the truth. but it's not what it is anymore. And to me, it's the teachers, and we're looking here at universities. But I mean, I've seen anecdotally, but elementary and even high school teachers, they're all in there in those classrooms pushing their ideas. Dude, stick to the fucking curriculum.
Yeah.
Stick to the curriculum. Don't start pushing your gender ideologies. Don't start pushing your personal beliefs. You're entitled to have them, and I respect wholeheartedly the fact that you have them. But your students are not there to become minions of your beliefs. They're there to learn about what you know, specifically with relating to the school.
Math, science, history, languages, and then shut the hell up.
You know,
That's
actually,
where I'm at with school. It's like math, science, history, and languages, and then like stay out of our lives, you lunatics.
Because, okay, and this raises a good question. Okay, so if you could devise or create a university and have only specific programs within it, which programs do you think are worthy of university higher up education?
Only the ones I mentioned.
Only the ones? Okay, I would add engineering.
Yeah, science.
Well, engineering is that a science?
Physics, yeah.
Well, yeah, but
It's learning
engineering is the specific thing, right?
Sure.
Science, sure. So medicine needs that. Law needs schooling.
Sure.
But that's about it, right? So like the STEM fields, definitely. Law, yes. But then like language, yes, languages. Liberal arts,
Like a little bit.
philosophy.
I don't find that they produce productive members of society. That's my issue with those programs. Is life is strategy. Like when you get into a business, you need to be strategic on how you're going to execute skills and talents and abilities that you've learned in your education.
Yeah.
And philosophy turns you in, like, I don't know, I find it doesn't help
into
you
a potato.
understand the strategies involved to actually survive in life. I don't find that you learn those things. Maybe it helps you intellectually, but intellectuals rarely push the envelope when it comes to innovation. And so
this person says, what about basket weaving? What about basket weaving? But you see, like, even then, let's push it a little bit further, right? So like, obviously I've run businesses, you run businesses, and to be quite frank with you, and I've had the chance over the years, a decade plus, to interact with people that have like MBAs, for example. And like, they honestly didn't really know how to run a company, a business. And this is why I've always believed that, at least when it comes to business, education is not a mandatory requirement. Lots of people, they go to school like, I really want to start a company. Okay, so I'm going to go get an MBA. It's like, you know where you would probably stand to learn a heck of a lot more? Just start a business. You're going to fail anyways, statistically, but you're going to learn tremendously more about real life example, because your professor in school, there's a very good chance he never started and ran a successful business. There's a good quote, and this is, I credit my father, but he's not the one who penned it, but he's the one who told me. He's like, those who can't teach. It's true.
those who can't govern.
Even worse.
Yeah, and honestly, the only thing I would push back on that is I did learn a lot in my finance and economics degree.
Yeah.
It helped me a lot to understand politics, the way I understand politics with numbers, looking at things like GDP per capita or federal debt, and learning that, you know, this is something I learned in college, was the more debt you accumulate, the higher the interest rate will get. You know, this is something that was obvious to me. You know, when Justin Trudeau said, you know, interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn, it's okay that we're borrowing all this money during the COVID era.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Nothing's going to happen. I knew that this guy is just completely incompetent. When he announced the carbon tax, initially, he actually announced the carbon tax, I think in 2018, something like that. I had gotten my education in university. I'd finished my degree, and he announced the carbon tax. I'm like, that sounds like a terrible idea, because the carbon tax, you learn in economics that commodities like that are necessary, like food and oil, the price is inelastic to demand. Like no matter how much the demand will always stay constant, and so the price will not change. The price will not change based on, you know.
Well, increasing the price through taxes, right, is not going to lower the demand. And
Exactly.
And as such, balancing the entire system, because
it's
like
not going to lower the output.
The demand the demand being inelastic forces. So if you increase the friction or the cost at any stage of the supply chain or the taxation, you're actually just increasing the cost overall, and it won't be a mitigating effect through lower demand.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say, but my words got tangled up.
It's okay. I didn't have to go to business school to say these things.
Yeah. But anyways, I learned about these things, and they, like, when I plan for my business, it's things that I learned. So I will say that education does help a lot, especially in finance. I think politicians should, like, if you want to run for office, you need to have like business, like a finance diploma, economics diploma minimum.
Well, then, Simmer,
Minimum.
you must love Carney. This is like, I don't think Trudeau, by the way, was an idiot. I think, again, he was just gaslighting people. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Well,
But
if people knew more, I think if voters knew this stuff more, economics, finance,
yes.
financial literacy, let's keep it at that. If they're financially literate, we wouldn't have the results we have. Anyways, let's move on.
Yeah, but you know who doesn't know how to run a country? Keir Starmer. And that guy, I think he's worse than Carney. I think he's the worst world leader right now.
Oh yeah.
The
He's
United
worse than Trudeau.
Oh, fuck. He's one of the most incompetent guys. But again, he's an idealist. And if you look at young Keir Starmer, this guy was like a crazy socialist, even slightly Marxist in some policies. But the United Kingdom is precipitating its own destruction. England and Wales now have around 70... Fuck, that number's huge, man. England and Wales now have around 75,000 recorded rapes per year. And it's only trending up. It used to be around 15,000, which is still high 20 years ago. But that has since obviously changed. There's been an increase over the last 20 years of 400%. And I have a graph here. I'm not going to put it on TV, but the graph is just like, whoop, it's like a J curve, okay? Well, we in finance will know the J curve, right? So it's, man, it got me thinking. I started looking into it then. I'm like, okay, such an increase in so many years. Could it be? Could it be? What's the cause behind it, right? It's always has the same little thread behind it. So now that England and Wales have around 75,000, no, sorry, I'm just repeating what I just said. Okay, that's an increase of So what has fundamentally, my throat, sorry. So what has fundamentally changed? Wow. What has fundamentally changed in the societal fabric of England since then? What could be the root cause for this 400% increase in rapes reported to police? Well, let's look at the data once again. In 2002, there was 4.6 million foreign-born residents in the UK. That represents a total population of 7.5%, or 7.5% of the total population was foreign-born. Well, in 2025, that number has ballooned to 11.4 million people in the UK are now foreign-born, representing 19.6% of the total population. So it leads to the obvious question. At what point will the government put the safety of their people first? And I don't mean more rules and more regulations to seize more power over people. I mean vetting the folks you let in. We've all done this before. We've all been young or even older and hosted a party, a gathering, an event, and we're careful about who we invite. Sometimes there's this person we're like, well, we're not too sure we're going to bring this person because they don't get along with so-and-so, or they have a history of causing problems whenever they're partying, for example. So we apply this reasoning to our daily personal lives. Well, it scales up to the size of a country. The same thing. If you continuously bring millions of people that are known in an aggregate to cause issues, who don't meddle or mix well with your people, who don't partake in society the same way you do, well, you increase rapes by 400%. And this, we've spoken about Sweden, we've looked at Norway, one day I'm going to come in here and talk about Canada, same thing. It is demoralizing. It has to have been done on purpose. You cannot look at these metrics, this data. Like you said, you went to school, you learned to look at data. You cannot look at data like that and think, this is good, let's continue this way. You're killing your people.
Yeah.
What does Chat think? Chat, what do you guys think of this? Oh, and we got Schnoz in the house. He's from Montreal. Or he's from Quebec, my bad, not Montreal. Anyways.
I actually have you ever seen, just on a quick side note, do you know Mohammed Tawhidi?
Yes.
The Imam of Peace?
Yes.
He actually released a clip recently. I really love this man. I think he's right on the money with his takes, and it's exactly going to contrast exactly what you've been talking about.
World is in a crisis. Dubai is not in a crisis. Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, there's no crisis there. The Muslim countries are doing good there. No. You are in a crisis. You went to the Muslim countries and you imported the extremists that the Muslim countries wanted to isolate away from society. You went and you imported them. Why? For cheap labor. But these Islamist extremists, they don't want to work, they want free welfare. When you import that, you make your bed, sleep in it.
Yeah.
That pretty much summarizes exactly the issue you are bringing up.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not the people who want to do that. I mean, sure, there's a fraction of the population that at first, and it was sold to the boomers at the time as, diversity is strength and it's good for everyone. And I think at face value, like, especially in Canada, because we used to have a great immigration system that worked. It worked. It was fine. It was not a contentious issue. It was not a problem. Nobody had an issue with immigration. So when we said, let's increase it even more, people just kind of scoffed. They're like, yeah, sure, no problem.
Makes sense.
But now in Canada, the sentiment of the general population is vastly against immigration. We've gone in 10 years, in a decade, that's a short amount of time. In a decade, the sentiment went from overwhelmingly in favor to majoritely against.
Yeah.
That's what 10 years of destruction does.
And you know who's had his finger on the pulse on this issue in Canada for a long time?
Who?
The person I made a segment for today,
Ooh.
our beloved Pierre Poilievre, if you...
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So, the establishment attacks on Pierre Poilievre seem to have no end. I was watching CTV News with Vashi Kapelos today, and on her panel, someone was saying that Poilievre has finally taken a stance against Trump's tariffs. Well, I have proof that he was on top of the issue over a year ago. And so this panel is either misinformed or actively and knowingly is misinforming the Canadian population. Shame on them either way. I have a whole segment on Pierre Poilievre that, like, a video that I prepared showing this. So let's take a look.
The United States is the greatest economic and military superpower in the history of the world, and they are our neighbor. The U.S. is responsible for $1.2 trillion of our trade. We trade almost twice as much with the Americans as we trade with the rest of the world combined. Trade with the U.S. is 40% of our economy. President Trump yesterday made an unjustified threat of a 25% tariff on our already weak and shrinking economy.
So that's back in 2024, that clip. And yet, someone on the news is saying that Pierre Poilievre has finally today, in 2026, taken a stance against Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
So, actively misinforming the public on CTV News with Vashi Kapelos. So, they're trying hard to take him down because they know how effective he is, because they know they're on borrowed time. Because once Canadians are truly hit with the economic disaster that is slowly unfolding in this country, they know that the people will look potentially for a new government. The youth overwhelmingly supports Poilievre, and the youth is our future. Pierre Poilievre is the only Canadian politician who even took the time to make documentaries on YouTube. You can check them out. They're called Detonation and Housing Hell. So he made 2 documentary style videos where he just sits down and talks about the issue in a non-partisan way. It says, this is the issue. These are the bureaucracies. Here's my solution. And he did that on 2 of the biggest issues we have in this country. That's our federal debt and our housing crisis. Why do they tear down Poilievre constantly? Because he's been right on almost every single major issue that most Canadians are facing today. And today I prepared a segment that will prove exactly that. When Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were pushing the provinces to lock down the Canadian economy and racking up endless federal debt that we still not have paid for until today, Pierre Poilievre was the first Canadian in Canadian politics to call out that the interest rate hikes incoming, and he was talking about the rates going up, and he was 100% correct. Here's a clip of that. Right here. This is back in like 2022, I think.
rates will go up whether he wants them to or not. He cannot force any private actor to lend money at lower rates than that actor chooses. So rates can rise even when bank governors don't want them to. They did in the late.
So he was talking about that. This is before he even became leader of the party, right? I remember that moment because it was at that moment that I realized that he was, in my opinion, the correct man to be prime minister. And in the next clip, Poilievre highlights how after liberal policies, Canadians have the highest household debt in the G7 and the effects that the rate hikes will have on Canadian mortgages. And once again, Poilievre was right on the money.
After 8 years of this Prime Minister, we have the highest household debt in the entire G7. Household debt is now 7% higher than our entire GDP, Mr. Speaker. And now his inflationary deficits are shooting up interest rates. So how much will the average family have to plan to pay more in mortgage payments per month?
So that was him talking about the issue before it became the crisis it's become today. And I have a stat to back up my claim. Mortgage as a percentage of after-tax household income. So in 2020, the average mortgage took up 30% of the average household's income after taxes. In 2023, that number has increased to 56.6. That's insane.
Wow.
Okay? And Pierre Poilievre was commenting on this stuff years ago while people were apparently not paying attention. In the next clip, Poilievre took the time to go to Niagara Falls and showcase how much different housing costs are in Niagara, Ontario versus Niagara, New York.
Why does this cost $570,000 and this costs $210,000? The difference is right over there. This is Niagara Falls, New York State, in the US of A. This is Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. They're only 20 minutes apart.
Let's keep going. Let's look at the final clip I have. Probably one of the most imminent threats to Canadian well-being is our disastrous healthcare wait times. While Pierre Poilievre has the best proposal compared to every other single politician in Canada, bar none. Let's look at some healthcare wait time numbers in Canada. In British Columbia, the average emergency wait time is 4 hours and 13 minutes. In New Brunswick, it's 4 hours and 28 minutes. In Prince Edward Island, it's 4 hours and 36 minutes. In Quebec, it's 5 hours and 23 minutes, the worst in Canada. And in Ontario, the average wait time is between 3 to 4 hours median in most reports. Let's look at specialist care. In Ontario, the average time it takes to see a specialist and to have procedures done is 19.2 weeks. In British Columbia, it's 32.2 weeks. In Quebec, 32.5 weeks. In Prince Edward Island, almost 50 weeks. Same thing with Nova Scotia, almost 50 weeks at 49 weeks. And in New Brunswick, 60.9 weeks just to see a specialist. Okay, an absolute disaster if you consider that a major portion of your tax dollars goes towards paying for healthcare in this country. And remember, our healthcare wait times take more lives per capita than healthcare wait times in the US and US gun violence combined. There is not a single province in Canada in which healthcare is not an issue, and that makes it, in my opinion, a federal issue. And only Pierre Poilievre's solution would truly make a change in this country with regard to healthcare wait times. Let's take a look at that.
Here we are today with a doctor shortage, but yet the 19,000 foreign-trained doctors are banned from working. When they apply, they're run in circles by provincial gatekeepers that do years of study into the history of every single foreign-trained graduate. It's so bad that it's not just affecting immigrants. I recently met a young lady from Montreal who had to go to Ireland to get into med school because there were no places in Quebec. When she graduated, they wouldn't let her do a residency in Quebec, so she went to California. And after she's done in California, they won't take her back in Quebec because they don't accept California residents in the Quebec medical system. But guess what? The Irish Minister of Health wrote her a letter inviting her back to practice in that country.
So, just to summarize everything that I'm saying, this media attack needs to stop. We need to come to center in this country and sit down at the table and really look at the solutions that Poilievre has offered on all these major issues in Canada. And he's been doing it for years upon years. And Carney hasn't been doing that. Trudeau wasn't doing that. Jagmeet wasn't doing that. And whoever the NDP replaces was not doing that. Only Pierre Poilievre was on top of these issues. And that's why I am a diehard supporter of this man. And that's my personal opinion. I'm not paid by the Conservative Party. I'm just a normal Canadian.
And we're not paid by Mossad either. So guys, this has been The Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in, and check out our Patreon, like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Well, what's your thought on Iran? And most importantly, also, are you a Pierre Poilievre supporter? Thank you so much.
Until next time.